What's up, y'all? It's Dr. Mia, your B3 specialist and board certified gynecologist at Me Bella Wellness Center, where we offer gynecology to women and adolescents, as well as hormone pellet therapy, weight management, total wellness solutions with supplements, intimacy services, and laser hair removal for both men and women. Our goal is to live well, age well, and experience everlasting intimacy. So, let's talk a little bit about Pap smears. So, you're getting your regular Pap smears because you do realize that Pap smears actually prevent cervical cancer. It's one of the few screening tools that prevents a cancer. Pap smears and colonoscopies. With the Pap smear, we know that any woman or man who walks around on the planet Earth, they get exposed to human papillomavirus, HPV. Is rampant in the population. Men have it under their fingernails. Women have it everywhere. It's all in my gynecology rooms. It's everywhere. So we know you're going to be exposed. So the exposure is not a big deal. The problem is when you're exposed and you're not getting Pap smears, and we don't realize that exposure to HPV has caused your cells to become slightly abnormal. Having slightly abnormal cells and your doctor to call you and say, hey, your Pap smear is abnormal. You got some slightly abnormal cells. We need to do a further workup is not exciting. It shouldn't be threatening. You shouldn't be nervous about it. It is a normal part of the process of screening for cervical cancer and preventing cervical cancer. You rarely hear of a woman in America with cervical cancer because the way we prevent cervical cancer is by having regular Pap smears, okay? If you have a cervix and you're over the age of 21, you should be having Pap smears every 1 to 3 years. But remember, Pap smears are only a very small part of a gynecology annual. So just because you may not need cells sent every year, you still need to see your gynecologist every year, definitely starting by the age of 21 all the way up to the age of 65. After 65, you can start having your annual exams every 2 years. During the annual exam, we always do a bunch of things. We do vital signs. We get a thorough history. We listen to heart and lungs, examine your throat, examine your neck, examine your breast. We put a speculum in. When we put the speculum in, sometimes we are going to actually take a sample and send off a Pap smear. Sometimes we put the speculum in and we're just examining. We remove the speculum. We also do what we call a bimanual exam, where we feel the ovaries and feel the uterus and feel the cervix. We're also looking at the outside of the outside, like at the vulva, and we're also looking inside at the vagina. So every 1 to 3 years, we send the Pap smears by taking cells when we have that speculum in, sending them off to see if the cells are normal. If the cells are not normal, that's not a big deal. We call you back and we say, hey, the cells are slightly abnormal this year. We're going to call you in and we're going to do what we call a colposcopy. A colposcopy is where you come into the office, we put the speculum in again. It stays there a little bit longer because we actually look at the cervix with a microscope. So I put vinegar on the cervix. That shows me slightly abnormal cells. That way I can take a biopsy of them, and then I can take a biopsy up higher in the cervical canal to ensure that though we have some slightly abnormal cells, those cells are just slightly abnormal, and it's safe for us to watch them until they go back to normal. So having a colposcopy and an abnormal Pap smear is not a big deal, especially if you've been getting regular Pap smears. And as long as you follow up after an abnormal Pap smear, you should never get cervical cancer, because what we're going to do is do more frequent Pap smears until you have 2 Pap smears in a row to go back to normal. And then we can go back to every 1 to 3 years having a Pap smear. So get your annuals every year. Having an abnormal Pap smear is not exciting or threatening. We know that this is just a part of the screening process, and it lets us know we're going to monitor you a little bit closer, do the colposcopy, ensure that nothing bad is going on. And most of the time, if you have like a slightly abnormal Pap smear like ascus or low grade, we know that most of those are going to regress back to normal on their own, but we monitor to make sure they don't turn into high grade, which is a stage well before turning into cancer. And when they turn to high grade, that's when we go ahead and get rid of those abnormal cells to ensure that they never turn into cervical cancer. So have your regular annual exams, have your regular Pap smears. If you're told that you have an abnormal Pap smear, make sure you follow up. Have your colposcopy done, where we're going to do some biopsies to confirm that the diagnosis shows that it's mild dysplasia. And when it's mild dysplasia, we expect for that to resort back to normal, but that may take anywhere from 1 to 4 years in order for that to happen. And we are monitoring to make sure it doesn't progress to something worse than just mild dysplasia. So have your regular Pap smears. They prevent cervical cancer. Follow up. The only thing you can do about abnormal Pap smears is stop smoking cigarettes. If you do smoke cigarettes, don't start smoking cigarettes. Have regular Pap smears, and then make sure you follow up after an abnormal Pap smear as frequently as we tell you to. And guess what? You will never, ever, ever get cervical cancer if you do those things. So don't be excited when your gynecology office calls you back and says, hey, your Pap smear was slightly abnormal. You're going to say, oh, okay, well, let me just make sure I'm following up and keep all of my appointments so I can make sure I never get cervical cancer. So that's my tidbit for today. I think that's very important because we have women all the time that have a Pap smear. It comes back abnormal. They spend all this time and energy being concerned until they get to that appointment. But I want you to understand that having an abnormal Pap smear is not a big deal. That's our screening doing what it's supposed to do to truly prevent cervical cancer. So as Dr. Mia, I hope to see y'all tomorrow morning at around 9 o'clock. Me and comedian Joy will be talking all about infertility and total wellness. So you don't want to miss it. Share this information with your friends and family so that we can make sure everybody's doing what they can to prevent cervical cancer. It's Dr. Mia. I'll see y'all later. And don't forget about our webinar that you can register for. The masterclass is on endometriosis. And that will be March 19th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So don't miss that. It's free information. Like you know, at Me Bella Wellness Center, we like to educate the community on important health matters so that we can decrease the health disparity and improve the health and total wellness of the community. So I'll see y'all tomorrow morning. I hope you have a phenomenal Friday evening. Bye.